The ancient stones of the sanctuary of forgotten waters wept with perpetual moisture, their surfaces slick with the tears of centuries. In the dim candlelight that flickered through the corridors, Elliot Greaves moved like a ghost among ghosts, his bare feet silent against the cold stone floors. The sanctuary had been his prison for 7 years, ever since the false prophecy that had destroyed his family's name and cast him into this place of exile and shame. At 24, Elliot was the last heir of the House of Forgotten Waters, a bloodline that had once commanded respect and fear in equal measure. His ancestors had been seers and truth speakers, their gift of echo touch allowing them to perceive the deepest secrets of any soul through physical contact. But that same gift had become his curse, twisted by circumstances beyond his control into something that brought only pain and isolation. The monastery that housed him was a grim fortress built into the mountainside, its walls designed to keep Omegas separated from the world that had rejected them. Here, under the watchful eyes of the silent brothers, Omegas lived out their days in meditation and penance, their natural gifts suppressed by religious doctrine and social prejudice. It was a living death, a slow dissolution of everything that made them unique and valuable. Elliot had learned to make himself invisible even among the invisible, to move through the sanctuary's routines without drawing attention or causing disruption. His pale skin bore the traditional markings of his house, silver-blue tattoos that traced intricate patterns along his arms and shoulders, visible reminders of a heritage he was no longer permitted to claim. His dark hair fell in waves around his face, partially concealing eyes the color of storm clouds over water. The echo touch that had once been his family's greatest strength now felt like a burden too heavy to bear. Every accidental contact with another person brought visions of their pain, their secrets, their hidden shames. He had learned to wear gloves, to avoid touch whenever possible, to shield himself from the overwhelming flood of human emotion that threatened to drown him in its intensity. Tonight felt different, though. The very air seemed to thrum with anticipation, and the ancient stones of the sanctuary hummed with an energy that made his tattooed skin tingle with recognition. Something was coming, something that would shatter the careful equilibrium he had built around his existence. He could feel it in his bones, in the way his Omega instincts stirred after years of forced dormancy. The sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor broke the sanctuary's usual silence, followed by voices raised in heated discussion. Elliot pressed himself against the wall, his heart racing as he recognized the authoritative tone of Brother Marcus, the sanctuary's stern administrator. Visitors were rare, especially at this hour, and Elliot had learned long ago that it was safer to remain unseen when strangers came calling. "I don't care what your clan traditions dictate," Brother Marcus was saying, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "This is sacred ground, and you have no authority here. The Omega you seek is under our protection, and he will remain so." "Protection?" came the reply, delivered in a voice that sent shivers down Elliot's spine. It was deep and resonant, carrying the unmistakable authority of an alpha, but there was something else beneath the surface, a carefully controlled intensity that spoke of barely leashed power. "You call this protection? Locking away those with the greatest gifts, forcing them to deny their own nature." Elliot risked a glance around the corner and felt his breath catch in his throat. The man facing Brother Marcus was tall and powerfully built, with the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. His dark hair was pulled back in a practical warrior's knot, and his clothes bore the distinctive bone-white and silver styling of the House of Bone Ridge. But it was his eyes that captured Elliot's attention, steel-gray and sharp as winter storms, scanning the sanctuary with the calculating gaze of a predator. This could only be Silas Vane, guardian of the House of Bone Ridge and one of the most feared werewolf warriors in the known territories. Stories of his prowess in battle and his unwavering loyalty to clan law had reached even the isolated sanctuary, though Elliot had never expected to see the legendary warrior in person. The werewolf's presence filled the space around him like a physical force, making the very air seem to vibrate with contained energy. "The Omega stays where he is," Brother Marcus said firmly, though Elliot could hear the uncertainty beneath his words. "The binding rituals that contain his gift are too important to disturb. One wrong move could unleash visions that would drive him mad, or worse, spread his contamination to others. Silas's laugh was sharp and humorless. Contamination? Is that what you call the ability to see truth through touch? Your fear of Omega gifts has made you blind to their value. I've seen what happens when such talents are suppressed. They find ways to manifest on their own, usually at the worst possible moments. And you believe yourself qualified to handle such power? Brother Marcus's tone carried a mixture of skepticism and concern. The Echo Touch is not some tool to be wielded for personal gain. It's a sacred gift that requires careful guidance and spiritual discipline. I need no guidance in recognizing value when I see it, Silas replied, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The artifact I seek can only be located by someone with the Echo Touch, someone who can perceive the truth hidden within ancient objects. Your Omega is the only one in the territories with that specific gift still intact. As if summoned by their conversation, a third voice joined the exchange, seeming to emerge from the shadows themselves. Perhaps the good brother is right to be cautious. Some truths are too dangerous to uncover, some gifts too powerful to unleash without proper preparation. Elliot's blood ran cold as another figure materialized from the darkness at the far end of the corridor, moving with the fluid grace of smoke given form. The newcomer was tall and lean, with features that were almost too perfect to be entirely human. His skin held a subtle luminescence that seemed to emanate from within, and his eyes were the color of deep amber, beautiful and terrible in their alien intensity. "Damien Crown," Silas snarled, his hand moving instinctively to the weapon at his side. "I should have known you'd be involved in this. What game are you playing now, demon?" "No game," Damien replied with a smile that revealed teeth just a shade too sharp to be comfortable. "I'm here for the same reason you are, werewolf. The artifact you seek holds the key to changing the fate of all our races. But it cannot be claimed by force or trickery. It must be earned through understanding and sacrifice." The name sent a chill down Elliot's spine. Damien Crown was infamous throughout the territories, a demon of the House of Bottomless Stone, who possessed the rare gift of speaking with the dead and the forgotten. He was said to be able to communicate with cursed objects and lost souls, to coax secrets from artifacts that had been silent for centuries. But he was also an exile, hunted by his own kind for crimes that were whispered about but never fully explained. "The Omega is not some tool to be used for your schemes," Brother Marcus protested, his voice rising with indignation. "He has suffered enough already. The false prophecy that destroyed his family, the shame that brought him here. He deserves peace, not more exploitation." "Peace." Damien's golden eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "There is no peace for those who carry such gifts. The Echo Touch calls to ancient powers, awakens sleeping forces that have slumbered for centuries. Your Omega is a catalyst, whether he knows it or not. The only question is whether he will shape the changes that are coming, or be shaped by them." "What changes?" Silas demanded, his warrior instincts clearly on high alert. "What are you talking about?" "The barriers between the races are weakening," Damien said, his voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to carry throughout the corridor. "The old hatreds, the ancient divisions, they're beginning to crumble. Soon, we will all be forced to choose between unity and destruction. The artifact you seek could be the key to ensuring our survival, but only if it's claimed by someone who understands its true purpose." "And you believe the Omega possesses such understanding?" Brother Marcus asked, his voice heavy with doubt. "I believe he possesses something far more valuable," Damien replied, his amber eyes fixed on the shadows where Elliot was hiding. "He possesses the ability to see truth where others see only lies, to find hope where others see only despair. That kind of vision is exactly what we need if we're going to survive what's coming." The conversation continued, but Elliot found himself unable to focus on the words. His mind was reeling with the implications of what he was hearing. The false prophecy that had destroyed his family's name, the shame that had brought him to this place. Could it all be connected to some greater purpose? And what was this artifact they were discussing, this object that apparently required his specific gifts to locate? Without fully understanding what he was doing, Elliot stepped out from behind the corner, his instincts overriding his common sense. The three men turned to look at him, and he felt his knees nearly buckle under the weight of their combined attention. Brother Marcus's face darkened with anger at the interruption, while Silas's eyes narrowed with calculating interest. But it was Damien's expression that truly unnerved him. The demon was looking at him with something that might have been recognition, as if he had been expecting this moment. "Elliot," Brother Marcus said sharply, "return to your cell immediately. This discussion does not concern you." "But it does," Elliot replied, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. "You're talking about me, about my gift, as if I'm not even here. Don't I have a say in what happens to my own life?" Silas took a step closer, and Elliot caught his scent, pine forest and mountain snow, with an underlying wildness that made something deep in his chest tighten with recognition. "You're smaller than I expected," the werewolf said, his voice carrying a note of assessment. "But there's strength in you, isn't there? A core of steel beneath all that omega softness." "I'm not soft," Elliot replied, meeting the werewolf's steel-gray gaze with his own storm-cloud eyes.
"I'm careful."
"There's a difference." "Indeed there is," Damien said, his amber eyes gleaming with interest. "Tell me, Elliot Greaves, what do you know about the prophecy that destroyed your family's name?" The question hit Elliot like a physical blow, and he felt the familiar pain of old wounds tearing open. "I know it was false," he said quietly. "I know it was my fault that people believed it, that my family was exiled and shamed because of something I said in a moment of weakness." "And what exactly did you say?" Damien pressed, his voice gentle but insistent. Elliot hesitated, the memory still too painful to examine closely. "I said that the child of water and stone would bridge the divide between the races, that love would triumph over hatred through the union of the forgotten and the feared. It was nonsense, the ramblings of a confused boy who had just manifested his gift. But people believed it was a true prophecy, and when it didn't come to pass, your family was blamed for spreading false hope," Silas said, his voice carrying a note of sympathy that surprised Elliot. "The clans used your words as an excuse to reject any possibility of unity, to strengthen the barriers between our peoples." "But what if it wasn't false?" Damien asked quietly. "What if it was simply premature? What if the child of water and stone has yet to be born, and the love that will triumph over hatred has yet to be discovered?" The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge, and Elliot felt something shift in the atmosphere around them. The ancient stones of the sanctuary seemed to pulse with energy, and his tattooed skin began to burn with a heat that had nothing to do with physical temperature. "That's impossible," Brother Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The prophecy was investigated thoroughly. There was no truth to it, no foundation in genuine vision. Perhaps because the one who spoke it was not yet ready to understand its full meaning," Damien suggested, his amber eyes never leaving Elliot's face. "Perhaps it was a glimpse of a future that could only be realized through specific circumstances, specific choices." "You're talking about destiny," Silas said, his warrior's pragmatism warring with something deeper in his voice. "About fate and predetermined outcomes. I don't believe in such things." "Then what do you believe in?" Elliot asked, surprised by his own boldness. "What brought you here tonight, if not some kind of destiny?" The werewolf was quiet for a long moment, his steel-gray eyes studying Elliot with an intensity that made the Omega's skin burn. "I believe in duty," he said finally, "in honor and loyalty to my clan. But I also believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves, in standing against injustice wherever I find it. And I believe in the power of truth to heal old wounds," Damien added, his voice soft with something that might have been hope. "In the possibility that love can indeed triumph over hatred, given the right circumstances." "What circumstances?" Elliot asked, though part of him was afraid to hear the answer. "The artifact we seek is called the Heart of Binding," Damien explained, his amber eyes gleaming with otherworldly light. "It was created during the last great war between the races, forged from the tears of Omegas, the blood of werewolves, and the essence of demons. It has the power to unite what has been divided, to heal what has been broken. But it's been lost for centuries, Silas added, his voice heavy with the weight of his clan's history, hidden away in a place where only the echo touch can reveal its location. That's why we need you, Elliot. Your gift is the key to finding it. And if I refuse? Elliot asked, though he already knew the answer. Then the divisions between our peoples will continue to deepen, Damien said simply. The hatred will grow stronger, the barriers will become insurmountable, and eventually, we will destroy each other through our own stubbornness and pride. The magnitude of what they were asking hit Elliot like a physical blow. They wanted him to leave the only safety he had ever known, to venture into a world that had already rejected him once, to risk everything on the possibility that a false prophecy might somehow become true. It was madness, pure and simple. But as he looked at the two men before him, he felt something stirring in his chest that had been dormant for years. Silas's strength and honor called to something deep in his Omega nature, while Damien's passion and otherworldly beauty awakened desires he had thought long dead. For the first time since his exile, he felt truly seen, truly valued for who he was rather than what he represented. "I'll help you," he said quietly, and felt the world shift around him like the turning of a great wheel. "But I have conditions." "Name them," Silas said without hesitation, and Elliot felt a surge of respect for the werewolf's quick decision. "First, I want to know the truth about the prophecy," Elliot said firmly. "All of it, not just the parts that serve your purposes. If I'm going to risk my life on this quest, I deserve to know exactly what I'm getting into." "Agreed," Damien said, his amber eyes dark with something that might have been guilt. "Though I warn you, the truth may be more painful than the lies you've been told. Second, I want your word that you'll protect me from the clans if they try to reclaim me." Elliot continued, his voice growing stronger with each demand. "I won't be dragged back to this place or any other prison just because my gift makes people uncomfortable." "You have my oath," Silas said solemnly, his hand moving to rest on his heart in the traditional gesture of clan binding. "As long as I draw breath, no one will harm you or force you into captivity." "And third," Elliot said, his storm cloud eyes meeting each of theirs in turn, "I want to understand why you're really here. Not just the official reasons, but the personal ones. If we're going to trust each other enough to attempt this quest, I need to know what drives you." The request seemed to catch both men off guard, and Elliot saw something flicker in their expressions, vulnerability, perhaps, or recognition of the deeper currents flowing beneath their surface motivations. "I'm here because I'm tired of watching my people destroy themselves through hatred and pride," Silas said quietly, his warrior's mask slipping to reveal something more human underneath. "I've seen what happens when fear rules over wisdom, when tradition becomes more important than truth. If there's a chance to change that, to build something better, I have to take it. And I'm here because I'm tired of running," Damien added, his perfect features softening with an emotion that might have been longing. "I've spent too long as an exile, cut off from everything that gives life meaning. If this quest can help me find redemption, a way to atone for past mistakes, then it's worth any risk." "Past mistakes?" Elliot asked, his empathic nature picking up on the pain underlying the demon's words. Damien was quiet for a long moment, his amber eyes distant with memory. "The false prophecy that destroyed your family's name," he said finally. "I was the one who planted it in your mind, who whispered the words that would echo through your voice. I meant it as a kindness, a way to give you hope in a world that seemed determined to crush your spirit. But it became something else, something that brought only pain and exile." The revelation hit Elliot like a physical blow, and he felt the familiar burn of betrayal spreading through his chest. You did this to me? You're the reason my family was destroyed." "Yes," Damien said simply, his voice heavy with regret. "And I've regretted it every day since. I thought I was giving you a gift, a vision of a better future. Instead, I gave you a curse that has haunted you for years. This quest is my chance to make amends, to turn that false prophecy into something real and meaningful." "How?" Elliot demanded, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. "How can you possibly make amends for destroying my entire life?" By helping you fulfill the prophecy, Damien said, his amber eyes blazing with desperate hope. By proving that the child of water and stone can indeed bridge the divide between the races, that love can triumph over hatred through the union of the forgotten and the feared. What child? Elliot asked, though part of him already knew the answer. What union? The child that will be born from the bond between us, Silas said quietly, his steel-gray eyes never leaving Elliot's face. The union of Omega and Werewolf, of water and stone, of the forgotten and the feared. The prophecy was never about some distant future. It was about this moment, this choice, this possibility. That's impossible, Elliot whispered. But even as he said it, he could feel the truth of it resonating in his bones. The attraction he felt to both men, the way his Omega nature responded to their presence, the stirring of instincts that had been dormant for years. It all made a terrible kind of sense. Is it? Damien asked gently. You have the gift of echo touch, the ability to see truth through physical contact. Touch me, Elliot. Touch us both, and see what your gift reveals. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet, and Elliot felt his heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. He had spent years avoiding touch, afraid of what his gift might reveal. But now, faced with the possibility of answers to questions that had haunted him for so long, he found himself unable to resist. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and placed his hand on Silas's arm. The moment their skin made contact, the world exploded into visions that threatened to overwhelm his senses. He saw the werewolf's past, his struggles with duty and desire, his longing for something more than the rigid expectations of his clan. But more than that, he saw the future. A future where he and Silas stood together, where a child with storm-cloud eyes and silver fur played at their feet, where love had indeed triumphed over hatred. Without breaking contact with Silas, Elliot reached out with his other hand and touched Damien's face. The demon's skin was warm under his palm, and suddenly the visions intensified, becoming more complex and layered. He saw Damien's exile, his pain and loneliness, his desperate desire for redemption. But he also saw something else through a future where all three of them stood together, where the barriers between their races had crumbled, where the child of prophecy carried the gifts of werewolf, Omega, and demon in perfect harmony. 3, Elliot breathed, his voice thick with wonder and terror. Not 2, but 3. The union isn't just between werewolf and Omega. It's between all three of us. The child will carry the blood of all three races, the bridge between all our peoples. Yes, Damien said, his amber eyes bright with hope. The prophecy was incomplete, limited by your understanding at the time. But now, with all three of us here, it can finally be fulfilled. But how? Silas asked, his warrior's pragmatism warring with the visions Elliot had shared through their touch. Omegas don't conceive through simple contact. There would need to be a deeper bond, a joining of minds and souls as well as bodies. The heart of binding, Damien said, his voice carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. It has the power to create bonds that transcend physical limitations, to unite souls in ways that go beyond mere biology. If we can find it, if we can claim it together, it will make the prophecy possible. And if we can't? Elliot asked, though he was already beginning to understand the answer. Then the divisions between our peoples will continue to deepen, Silas said grimly. The hatred will grow stronger, the barriers will become insurmountable, and eventually, we will destroy each other through our own stubbornness and pride. More than that, Damien added, his perfect features dark with concern. The silence curse that was placed on you, Elliot, will continue to grow stronger. It was designed to ensure that no alpha could love you without facing death, to prevent any possibility of the prophecy being fulfilled. But it's also slowly killing you, draining your life force to maintain its power. What? Elliot gasped, his hand moving instinctively to his chest where he had been feeling an increasing weakness over the past months. What are you talking about? The brothers didn't just place you under their protection, Damien explained, his voice heavy with regret. They bound you with a curse designed to prevent any romantic attachment, any possibility of conceiving a child. It's been slowly consuming your omega nature, your very essence, to maintain its hold over you. You're saying I'm dying? Elliot asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Not dying, Silas said firmly, his steel-gray eyes blazing with protective fury. Not if we can help it. The heart of binding has the power to break such curses, to restore what has been stolen. But we need to find it quickly, before the damage becomes irreversible. The urgency of the situation hit Elliot like a physical blow. Not only was he being asked to fulfill an ancient prophecy, but his very life depended on their success. The weakness he had been feeling, the gradual fading of his omega instincts, the growing sense of disconnection from his own nature, it all made terrible sense now. How long do I have? He asked, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. Months, perhaps less, Damien said, his amber eyes dark with concern. The curse is accelerating, feeding on your growing emotional connections. The more you care about us, the more it will consume you to prevent that caring from developing into love. Then we need to leave immediately, Silas said, his warrior's instincts taking over. Every moment we delay increases the risk. Wait, Brother Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying a note of desperation. You can't take him from here. The sanctuary is the only place where the curse is partially contained. Outside these walls, it will consume him completely. Then we'd better move fast, Elliot said, his decision made. Because I'd rather die trying to live than waste away in this place, slowly losing everything that makes me who I am. Elliot, Brother Marcus pleaded, be reasonable. The risks are enormous. Even if you find this artifact, even if you manage to break the curse, the clans will never accept what you're proposing. They'll hunt you down, destroy you and anyone who stands with you. Then we'll prove them wrong, Elliot said with quiet determination. We'll show them that love is stronger than hatred, that unity is more powerful than division. And if we fail, at least we'll fail trying to build something better. The boy has chosen, Damien said, his amber eyes gleaming with approval. Now we must honor that choice and do everything in our power to ensure his success. Our success, Silas corrected, his steel-gray eyes meeting Elliot's with an intensity that made the Omega's heart race. We're in this together now, all three of us. Whatever happens, we face it as one. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation and nervous energy. Elliot gathered what few possessions he had been allowed to keep, while Silas and Damien made arrangements for their departure. The sanctuary's brothers watched with disapproving eyes, but they made no move to stop them. Perhaps they too could sense the change in the air, the feeling that destiny was finally in motion. As they prepared to leave, Elliot found himself struggling with doubts that threatened to overwhelm his newfound resolve. He was about to abandon the only safety he had ever known, to venture into a world that had already rejected him once, to risk everything on the word of two men he barely knew. It was madness, pure and simple. But as he looked at Silas and Damien, saw the way they moved together with unconscious synchronization, felt the growing bond between all three of them, he knew that madness was his only choice. The alternative was slow death, a gradual fading into nothingness that would leave him with nothing but regrets and what might have beens. Are you ready? Silas asked, his voice gentle despite the urgency of their situation. I don't think anyone can be ready for something like this, Elliot replied honestly. But I'm willing to try. That's all any of us can do, Damien said, his perfect features soft with understanding. Try, and hope, and trust in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. They left the sanctuary under cover of darkness, slipping away from the only home Elliot had known for 7 years. The mountain paths were treacherous, but Silas's werewolf senses guided them safely through the darkness, while Damien's demonic abilities cleared away obstacles and concealed their passage from potential pursuers. As they descended toward the valley below, Elliot felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. He was free, truly free, for the first time in his adult life. But that freedom came with a price, the knowledge that he was slowly dying, that his only chance of survival lay in fulfilling a prophecy that had already destroyed his family once. Where are we going? he asked as they paused to rest beside a mountain stream. To the village of phantoms, Silas replied, his steel-gray eyes reflecting the starlight. It's a settlement of exiles and outcasts, a place where the usual rules don't apply. If the heart of binding can be found anywhere, it will be there. And if it can't be found? Elliot asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Then we'll keep searching until we find it, Damien said firmly. No matter how long it takes, no matter what obstacles we face. We won't let the curse take you, Elliot. We won't let fear and hatred win. The conviction in his voice was absolute, and Elliot felt something warm and hopeful bloom in his chest. For the first time in years, he dared to believe that his future might hold something more than pain and isolation. The prophecy that had destroyed his family might yet become the foundation for something beautiful and lasting. Tell me about the village of phantoms, he said, settling beside the stream to rest his aching feet. What kind of place is it? A place where love is not a crime, Silas said, his voice carrying a note of wonder. Where omegas and alphas can bond without fear of persecution. Where demons and werewolves can work together without centuries of hatred poisoning every interaction. It sounds too good to be true, Elliot said, though he desperately wanted to believe it. It's not perfect, Damien warned, his amber eyes serious. It's a rough place, full of people who have been hurt by the world and aren't always quick to trust. But it's also a place where second chances are possible, where love can flourish despite the odds. And you think we'll find what we're looking for there? Elliot asked. I think we'll find the beginning of our answer, Silas said carefully. The heart of binding was hidden by those who understood its power, who wanted to preserve it for a time when it would be truly needed. The outcasts and exiles of the village of phantoms are exactly the kind of people who would guard such a treasure. They traveled for 3 days through increasingly wild terrain, following paths that seemed to exist only in Damien's memory and Silas's instincts. The werewolf's protective nature manifested in countless small ways, ensuring Elliot had enough food and water, choosing the safest routes, standing guard while the Omega slept. The demon's care was more subtle but no less real, using his powers to ease their journey and shield them from potential threats. With each passing day, Elliot could feel the curse's grip tightening around his heart. The weakness was becoming more pronounced, and he found himself struggling to keep up with his companions despite their careful pace. But more troubling was the way his Omega nature seemed to be fading, his instincts growing dim and distant as if viewed through thick glass. It's getting worse, he admitted on the third evening as they made camp beside a hidden spring. I can feel it draining away, everything that makes me who I am. Then we need to move faster, Silas said, his steel-gray eyes dark with concern. The village of phantoms is only a day's journey ahead. If we push hard, we can reach it by tomorrow night. And if the heart of binding isn't there? Elliot asked, voicing the fear that had been growing in his mind. Then we'll find another way, Damien said firmly. There are other artifacts, other sources of power that might be able to break the curse. We won't give up, Elliot. We won't let you fade away. But even as he spoke, Elliot could see the doubt in the demon's amber eyes. The curse was stronger than they had anticipated, its hold on him growing tighter with each passing hour. Time was running out and they all knew it. That night, as they huddled together for warmth around their small fire, Elliot found himself pressed between his two companions, their bodies providing comfort and protection in equal measure. The physical contact sent visions dancing through his mind, glimpses of possible futures, some bright with hope, others dark with despair. I can see it, he whispered, his voice thick with exhaustion and growing weakness. The child we're supposed to create is beautiful, perfect in every way, but it's also dangerous. The power it will carry, the changes it will bring, some people will see it as a threat to be eliminated. Then we'll protect it, Silas said, his arm tightening around Elliot's shoulders. We'll protect both of you, no matter what it costs. And if protecting us means war? Elliot asked, his storm-cloud eyes meeting the werewolf's steel-gray gaze. If it means watching the clans tear each other apart over something we created, then we'll find a way to make peace, Damien said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. We'll show them that love is stronger than hatred, that unity is more powerful than division. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. The next day brought them to the outskirts of the village of phantoms, and Elliot felt his breath catch at the sight that greeted them. The settlement was unlike anything he had ever seen, a sprawling collection of buildings that seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding forest, their architecture drawn from a dozen different cultures and traditions. Smoke rose from countless chimneys, and the air was filled with the sounds of life and activity. But what truly amazed him was the diversity of the people moving through the streets. Omegas walked freely beside alphas, their heads held high with pride rather than bowed in submission. Demons traded goods with werewolves, their ancient enmity apparently forgotten in the face of common need. Children played in the streets, their laughter pure and uninhibited, while their parents watched with expressions of wonder and gratitude. "It's real," Elliot breathed, his voice filled with awe. "A place where the barriers between races truly don't matter." "It's more than real," Silas said, his own voice thick with emotion. "It's proof that the prophecy can be fulfilled, that love can indeed triumph over hatred. But first, we need to find the heart of binding," Damien reminded them, his amber eyes scanning the bustling settlement. "And we need to find it quickly, before the curse consumes what little strength Elliot has left." They made their way through the village streets, drawing curious glances but no hostility. The people here seemed to recognize them as fellow outcasts, fellow refugees from a world that had rejected them for daring to be different. It was a recognition that went deeper than mere appearance. These people understood the pain of exile, the courage it took to build something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. "There," Damien said, pointing to a building that seemed older than the rest, its walls covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. "The archive of lost things. If the heart of binding is here, that's where we'll find it." The archive was a repository of forgotten knowledge and abandoned artifacts, tended by a figure who introduced himself simply as the Keeper. He was an ancient being whose true nature was unclear, perhaps once human, perhaps something else entirely, but his eyes held the wisdom of ages and the sadness of countless losses. "The heart of binding," he said when they explained their quest, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Yes, I know of it. A dangerous artifact, one that has been sought by many but claimed by none. It waits in the deepest vaults, protected by wards that test more than just magical ability." "What do they test?" Elliot asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The purity of intention," the Keeper replied, his ancient eyes studying them with unsettling intensity. "The strength of love, the willingness to sacrifice everything for another's happiness. Many have attempted to claim the heart, but all have failed because they sought it for their own purposes rather than for the greater good." "And if we pass the test?" Silas asked, his warrior's pragmatism warring with something deeper in his voice. "Then you will be bound together in ways that transcend physical form," the Keeper said solemnly. "Your souls will be joined, your destinies intertwined, your love made manifest in ways that will change the very nature of your world. But be warned, such power comes with a price. Once bound by the heart, you can never be separated, never choose different paths. You will live as one or die as one, with no middle ground." The warning hung in the air like a challenge, and Elliot felt his companion's tension as they considered the implications. To claim the heart would mean committing to each other completely, abandoning any possibility of a conventional life or traditional relationships. It was a leap of faith that would define the rest of their existence. "I'm willing," Elliot said quietly, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was proposing. "I've never wanted a conventional life, and I've never felt the kind of connection with anyone that I feel with both of you. If the heart can deepen that connection, make it something permanent and unbreakable, I want that more than anything." "As do I," Silas said, his steel-gray eyes never leaving Elliot's face. "I've spent my whole life following the expectations of others, conforming to the narrow definitions of what a werewolf should be. But when I look at you, Omega, I see something that makes me want to be more than just a warrior or a guardian. I see someone who could help me become the person I was meant to be." And I see two souls who complement each other perfectly, Damien added, his voice soft with emotion. The strength of the werewolf, the wisdom of the Omega, and perhaps the passion of the demon to bind them together. We could be something unprecedented, something that transcends the limitations of our individual natures. The keeper nodded slowly, his ancient features creasing with what might have been approval. Then come, he said, leading them deeper into the archive. Let us see if your love is truly strong enough to claim the heart of binding. The vaults beneath the archive were unlike anything Elliot had ever seen. The walls were lined with artifacts from across the ages, each one humming with its own unique power. But it was the chamber at the very heart of the complex that took his breath away, a circular room whose walls seemed to stretch into infinity, at the center of which floated a crystalline structure that pulsed with its own inner light. The heart of binding was beautiful and terrible, a work of art that seemed to contain entire universes within its faceted surface. It was larger than Elliot had expected, roughly the size of a human heart, and as he watched, he could see energies swirling within it like captured lightning. The air around it shimmered with power, and he could feel his Omega nature responding to its presence in ways that made his tattooed skin burn with recognition. It's magnificent, Damien breathed, his amber eyes wide with wonder. I can feel its power from here, calling to something deep within my soul. It's calling to all of us, Elliot said, his voice thick with emotion. But it's also testing us. I can feel it probing our minds, our hearts, our very souls. It wants to know if we're worthy of what it represents. And what does it represent? Silas asked, his steel-gray eyes never leaving the heart's luminous form. Unity, Elliot said, the truth hitting him like a revelation. Not just between the three of us, but between all the races, all the divisions that have kept our peoples apart. It's not just an artifact. It's a living symbol of what we could become if we chose love over fear. As if responding to his words, the heart pulsed with increased intensity, and the light around it began to shift and change. Images appeared in the radiance, scenes from possible futures where the barriers between races had crumbled, where love had indeed triumphed over hatred. But there were also darker visions, futures where fear and division had led to destruction and despair. It's showing us the stakes, Damien said, his voice filled with understanding. The choice we're making here, the bond we're considering, it will determine not just our own fate, but the fate of our entire world. Then we'd better choose correctly, Silas said grimly, his warrior's instincts fully engaged, because there won't be a second chance. The heart's test began without warning, a wave of energy that washed over them and seemed to peer into their deepest secrets. Elliot felt his mind being probed, his memories examined, his motivations laid bare. Every moment of doubt, every selfish impulse, every fear and weakness was exposed to the artifact's scrutiny. But the heart was not seeking perfection. It was seeking truth. And the truth was that despite their flaws, despite their doubts and fears, the three of them loved each other with a depth and intensity that transcended reason. They were willing to sacrifice everything for each other's happiness, to face any danger to protect what they had found together. It's working, Elliot gasped, his voice filled with wonder. I can feel it, the bond forming between us. We're becoming something new, something that's never existed before. A triad, Silas said, his voice thick with emotion. Bound by love and power, united in purpose and spirit. I can feel your thoughts, Elliot, your hopes and dreams. And yours too, Damien. We are three minds sharing one heart. And one destiny, Damien added, tears of joy streaming down his perfect features. I never thought I would find redemption, let alone love. But here, with both of you, I feel complete for the first time in my existence. The heart's song reached a crescendo, and suddenly the crystalline structure dissolved into pure energy, flowing into the three of them like liquid lightning. Elliot felt the artifact's power settling into his bones, becoming part of his very essence. But it wasn't his power alone. It belonged to all three of them equally, a shared resource that would bind them together for eternity. As the energy settled, Elliot felt an immediate change in his body. The weakness that had been draining his strength was gone, replaced by a vitality that seemed to come from the very core of his being. His omega nature, which had been fading under the curse's influence, blazed back to life stronger than ever before. But more than that, he could feel new possibilities awakening within him, potentials that had never existed before. "The curse is broken," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "I can feel it. The silence curse is gone, shattered by the heart's power. But something else is beginning, something unprecedented." "What do you mean?" Silas asked, his steel-gray eyes dark with concern. "I'm changing," Elliot said, his hand moving instinctively to his abdomen. "The bond between us, the power of the heart, it's awakening something in my biology, something that was always there but never had the chance to develop. I think I'm going to conceive a child." The revelation hit his companions like a physical blow, and for a moment, the only sound in the chamber was the echo of their racing hearts. Then Silas was beside him, his strong hands gentle as they framed Elliot's face, his eyes blazing with a mixture of joy and protective fury. "A child," the werewolf breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "Our child, the fulfillment of the prophecy, the bridge between worlds that will change everything." "Are you certain?" Damien asked, moving to kneel beside them, his amber eyes bright with wonder. "The union of 3 bloodlines has never been attempted before. We don't know what to expect." "I'm certain," Elliot said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was revealing. "I can feel the life beginning to form within me, can sense its incredible potential. It's not just a child, it's a symbol, a living proof that love can transcend every boundary, every division." "And a target," Silas said grimly, his protective instincts already flaring to life. "When word of this spreads, every faction that opposes change will see the child as a threat to be eliminated." "Then we protect it," Damien said with quiet determination. "We find a safe place, away from the politics and prejudices of the outside world. We give our child a chance to grow and develop in peace." But even as they spoke, Elliot could feel the changes beginning within him. The child that was forming was unlike anything that had ever existed, part werewolf, part demon, part omega, carrying the combined essence of all 3 races. It would be powerful beyond imagination, but also vulnerable in ways that no one could predict. "We need to leave the village," he said, his voice urgent with growing awareness. "The child's power is already beginning to manifest, and it's drawing attention from forces that would see it destroyed. We need to find somewhere truly safe, somewhere hidden from the world until it's ready to face its destiny." "Where?" Silas asked, his warrior's mind already working on the logistics of their escape. "Where can we go that would be safe from the combined forces of the clans?" "The Howling Peaks," Damien said, his amber eyes distant with memory. "There are ruins there, ancient strongholds that were built when the 3 races last worked together. The magic there is old and powerful, and it might be able to shield us from detection." "It's a hard journey," Silas warned, his steel-gray eyes dark with concern. "The paths are treacherous, and the weather is unpredictable. In your condition, Elliot, it might be too dangerous." "More dangerous than staying here and waiting for our enemies to find us?" Elliot countered, his hand moving protectively over his abdomen. "I can feel them already, the forces that would see this child dead before it's even born. We need to move, and we need to move now." The decision made, they gathered their supplies and prepared to leave the village of phantoms. The journey would be long and difficult, but they had no choice. The child growing within Elliot was too important, too powerful, to be left vulnerable to those who would use its death to maintain the status quo. As they made their way through the village streets for the last time, Elliot felt a profound sense of loss. This place had shown him what was possible when love triumphed over hatred, when unity replaced division. But it had also shown him the fragility of such peace, the constant threat that fear and prejudice posed to everything they were trying to build. "We'll be back," Damien said, as if reading his thoughts. "When the child is born, when the world is ready to accept what we've created, we'll return." This place will be our model, our example of what all our settlements could become. You think the world will ever be ready? Elliot asked, his voice heavy with doubt. I think the world will have to be ready, Silas said with quiet conviction. Because the alternative is destruction, and that's not a price any of us can afford to pay. They traveled for days through increasingly wild terrain, following paths that seemed to exist only in the memories of the ancient stones. The werewolf's protective nature manifested in countless ways, scouting ahead for dangers, ensuring Elliot had enough rest, carrying him when the journey became too difficult. The demon's care was more subtle but no less real, using his powers to ease their passage and shield them from potential threats. With each passing day, Elliot could feel the child growing stronger within him. The pregnancy was progressing at an accelerated pace, the child's triracial heritage apparently affecting its development in ways that defied normal biology. But more than that, he could sense the child's consciousness beginning to form, its awareness of the world around it growing with each passing hour. It's aware, he told his companions one evening as they made camp in a hidden valley. The child can hear us, can sense our emotions. It knows about the bond between us, understands that it's the product of something unprecedented. What does it feel like? Damien asked, his amber eyes bright with curiosity. Can you sense its personality? Its nature? It's balanced, Elliot said slowly, searching for the right words. Strong like Silas, passionate like you, but also wise beyond its years. It will be everything we are, but also something entirely new. A true bridge between worlds. And it will need all of us, Silas added, his voice soft with wonder. Not just one father, but three. A family that transcends traditional definitions. The first of its kind, Damien said, but hopefully not the last. If we can prove that such bonds are possible, that love can create new forms of life and connection, perhaps others will follow our example. But their peaceful journey was not destined to last. On the seventh day, as they approached the foothills of the Howling Peaks, they encountered the first signs of pursuit. Silas's werewolf senses detected the scent of tracking hounds, while Damien's demonic abilities revealed the presence of powerful magical wards designed to locate and contain them. They've found us, Silas said grimly, his hand moving to his weapon. The clans have joined forces, werewolf and demon both, to hunt us down. How many? Elliot asked, though he could already feel the answer through his enhanced senses. The child within him was responding to the threat, its power beginning to manifest in ways that made the very air around them shimmer with energy. Too many, Damien said, his perfect features dark with concern. They're not just hunting us, they're hunting the child. They see it as an abomination, a threat to everything they believe in. Then we run, Elliot said, his voice steady despite the fear racing through his veins. We reach the ruins, we find sanctuary, and we hold out until the child is born. And after that? Silas asked, his steel-gray eyes dark with the knowledge of what they were facing. After that, we change the world, Elliot said with quiet determination. We prove that love is stronger than hatred, that unity is more powerful than division. We show them that the future belongs to those who can embrace difference rather than fear it. The final ascent to the Howling Peaks was a nightmare of treacherous paths and hostile weather. The child within Elliot seemed to sense the danger, its power manifesting in ways that both protected and endangered them. Ancient magics awakened in response to its presence, creating barriers against their pursuers, but also drawing unwanted attention from other forces. By the time they reached the ruins, Elliot was exhausted and the child was ready to be born. The ancient stronghold was a marvel of forgotten architecture, its walls carved with symbols that seemed to shift and change in the moonlight. But more than that, it was a place of power, where the combined magics of all three races had once worked in harmony. Here, Elliot gasped, his body convulsing with the first contractions. It has to be here. The child wants to be born in this place, where the races were last united. The birth was unlike anything any of them had experienced. It began at midnight, when the barriers between worlds were at their thinnest, and the very air seemed to sing with anticipation. Silas and Damien supported Elliot through every moment, their love and strength flowing into him through the bond they shared. But as the child's birth approached, so did their pursuers. The combined forces of the clans had tracked them to the ruins, and now they surrounded the ancient stronghold with weapons and magic designed to destroy what they saw as an abomination. "You cannot stop what has already begun," a voice called out from the darkness, carrying the authority of ancient law. "The child you carry is an affront to nature, a corruption that must be cleansed from the world." "The only corruption here is your hatred," Elliot replied, his voice carrying despite the pain of labor. "This child is the future, the bridge between worlds that will heal the divisions you've created." "A bridge built on perversion and blasphemy," came the reply. "We will not allow such corruption to spread." "Then you'll have to go through us?" Silas snarled, his werewolf nature fully manifest as he prepared to defend his family. "And I promise you, that won't be easy." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The combined power of the three bonded mates, amplified by the child's approaching birth, created a barrier of energy that their enemies could not penetrate. The ancient magics of the ruins responded to their love, protecting them from harm while allowing the miracle of birth to proceed. And when the child finally emerged, it was with a flash of light that illuminated the entire peak. The baby was perfect, healthy, and strong, with features that blended all three of his father's heritages. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, like Elliot's, but they held depths that spoke of ancient wisdom and infinite potential. Most remarkably, the child bore wings, not the leathery appendages of a demon, but gossamer structures that seemed to be made of moonlight and shadow. They were beautiful and alien, a visible sign of the unprecedented nature of his heritage. "He's perfect," Silas breathed, his voice choked with emotion as he held his son for the first time. "Everything we hoped for and more." "Look at his aura," Damien said in wonder. "I can see all three bloodlines intertwined, but also something else. Something that's purely his own." "He's the future," Elliot said, his heart overflowing with love as he watched his bonded mates cradling their child. "The first of a new generation that will know no boundaries, no artificial divisions. Through him, the three races will become one." As if in response to his words, the child opened his eyes and looked directly at each of his fathers in turn. In that gaze, they could see intelligence far beyond his apparent age, a wisdom that spoke of understanding that transcended normal comprehension. "He knows," Elliot whispered, his voice filled with awe. "He understands what he represents, what he's meant to accomplish. And he approves," Damien added, his amber eyes bright with tears of joy. "He's not afraid of his destiny. He embraces it." The enemies who had surrounded the ruins began to withdraw, their resolve shaken by the miracle they had witnessed. Some fled in terror, unable to process what they had seen. Others fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the child's presence and the undeniable power of love made manifest. "The world will never be the same," Silas said, his voice filled with wonder and anticipation. "This child will change everything, will force everyone to reconsider their assumptions about what's possible." "Then we'd better be ready to guide that change," Elliot said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "Because the world will need teachers, examples of what unity can accomplish." They named the child Lyrian, meaning song of harmony in the ancient tongue. From his first breath, he seemed to embody the unity his fathers had fought to create. He responded equally to all three parents, his infant mind already reaching out through the bond to connect with their thoughts and emotions. As the days passed, it became clear that Lyrian was indeed something unprecedented. He aged more quickly than normal children, his development accelerated by the magical forces that had shaped his creation. By his first month, he was already showing signs of advanced intelligence and awareness. By his third month, he was beginning to manifest abilities that drew from all three bloodlines. "He's going to be more powerful than any of us," Silas observed one evening as they watched Lyrian practice moving objects with his mind while his gossamer wings shimmered in the firelight. "More powerful than anyone who has ever lived. But also more balanced," Elliot added, his Omega instincts allowing him to sense the child's emotional state. He has access to powers from all three races, but he also has the wisdom to use them responsibly. He'll never know the kind of prejudice and division that shaped us. He'll be the bridge we always hoped to build, Damien said, his amber eyes soft with paternal pride. Living proof that love can overcome any obstacle, create any miracle. The peaceful months in their mountain sanctuary came to an end when delegations from all three races arrived to see the child that had resulted from their unprecedented union. Word of Lyrian's birth had spread throughout the territories, and now representatives from werewolf clans, demon courts, and Omega colonies were demanding to witness what they had created. The first to arrive were representatives from the werewolf clans, led by Silas's own pack leader. The elder werewolf was a formidable figure, his presence commanding respect and fear in equal measure. But when he saw the child, when he felt the love that flowed between the three bonded mates, his hostility began to crumble. "This is not what we expected," he admitted, his steel-gray eyes, so like Silas's, studying Lyrian with fascination. "The child is remarkable. We can feel the power in him, but also the gentleness. He has the strength of our people, but none of the rage. He has the best of all three bloodlines," Silas said proudly. "And he has something more, the knowledge that he is loved absolutely, without condition or reservation. That makes all the difference." The demon delegation arrived next, led by a lord of the inner circle who had come to investigate the rumors of their unprecedented union. But like the werewolf elder, he found his preconceptions challenged by the reality of what he witnessed. The love between the three fathers was undeniable, and the child they had created was clearly something special. "You have achieved something we thought impossible," the demon lord said, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. "You have found a way to unite our peoples without destroying what makes each of us unique. This child could be the key to ending the ancient conflicts that have weakened us all." The Omega delegation was the last to arrive, and their reaction was perhaps the most complex. They saw in Elliot someone who had transcended the limitations that society had placed upon their kind, who had found strength and power in his nature rather than shame and subordination. But they also saw challenges to their own understanding of what it meant to be Omega. "You have broken every rule," their leader said, but there was wonder in his voice rather than condemnation. "You have shown us that we are not weak, not inferior, not destined to serve others. You have shown us that we can be equal partners in love and power." "That was always the truth," Elliot replied gently. "I just found the courage to embrace it, with the help of those who loved me enough to see past the lies we were all told about our natures." The gathering of the three delegations marked a turning point in the history of their world. For the first time in centuries, representatives from all three races stood together in peace, united by their shared wonder at the miracle of Lyrian's existence. The child himself seemed to understand the significance of the moment, his infant mind already reaching out to touch the hearts and minds of all present. "He's changing them just by being here," Elliot observed, watching as ancient enemies began to see each other as individuals rather than representatives of hostile races. "His very existence is proof that the barriers between us are artificial, that love can indeed triumph over hatred. It's what the prophecy always intended," Silas said, his arm around his bonded mate's shoulders. "Not destruction, but transformation. Not war, but peace. The child of water and stone, bridging the divide between the races through the power of love." "And he's not alone," Damien added, his amber eyes bright with hope. "Other children will follow, other bonds will be formed. The future belongs to those who can love without boundaries." As the years passed, their family became the foundation of a new society, one where the old divisions between races were replaced by new understandings based on love and mutual respect. Lyrian grew into a remarkable young man, his power balanced by wisdom, his strength tempered by compassion. He became a teacher and a leader, helping others to see past the prejudices that had divided their peoples for so long. But perhaps most importantly, he became living proof that the greatest miracles were born not from conflict, but from love. The prophecy that had once seemed false had become the foundation of a new world, where unity replaced division, where understanding conquered fear, and where the future belonged to those brave enough to choose love over hatred. The Omega, who had been exiled for speaking false prophecy, had become the father of a new age. The werewolf, who had questioned ancient traditions, had become the guardian of revolutionary change. The demon, who had sought redemption, had found it in the love of his chosen family. Together, they had created something that transcended the limitations of their individual natures, a love that would reshape the world for generations to come.